Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're taking a look at a 2013 Volvo XC90 that's making a whistling sound. It's very high pitched and very annoying to listen to. And so a couple of the symptoms that we're going to go through today are how to fix it and how to diagnose this problem. So first, let's start by hearing what that sounds like, and then we'll work through some of the diagnostics. There you go. Hopefully you can hear that whistling in the background. It's a little bit annoying. The next thing that we're going to do is check one more thing under the hood. The next thing that we're going to check is the dipstick, and we're going to pull this out. And do you hear that pressure right there? That tells us that we've got a bad PCV valve that's hidden right back there. Let's turn this car off and talk a little more. For now, another symptom you might have is if you notice you're also low on oil. You also may have a check engine light. The check engine light may indicate that it's lean. So you look on your dash, you see a check engine light. If you run the scanner, you've got a lean code. You've got a whistling sound, and you've got perhaps a little low on oil. That tells you here we've got a bad PCV valve. Those all point together towards today's repair. The tools that you may need to do this repair are going to be relatively straightforward. First of all, we're going to need some T30 Torx equipment, T30 screwdriver. You also would need a stubby, or I think it's better if you have a T30 Torx socket. And if that's a 3/8 drive, you also may need a 3/8 to 1/4 inch reducer, a 3/8 ratchet, a 1/4 inch torque wrench, because we're going to be targeting our final torque at about 100 inch-pounds on these bolts whenever we get them fully installed. A couple 4-inch extensions. I've got a 3/8 and a 1/4 inch one here for each ratchet respectively. My socket here, a little pry bar. I've got this little fun pry bar here. I'll put a link down below if you're interested in this. If you need to be able to possibly just be able to gently pry up to get your valve cover off. Some people need that, some people won't. For cleaning up your engine or cleaning any varnish, I got these little extended Q-tips. I got a whole set of those. Some super lube to be able to lubricate your gasket before you put it back on. Obviously some safety glasses, and you may want just a quick shot or two of brake clean to help to clean up some of that varnish off of the PCV area, and obviously some shop towels. Maybe you also want a little vacuum to help pull up any other debris out of the engine compartment while you're at it. Maybe you also need some extra motor oil if you need to top off your engine oil, and while you have the hood open, go ahead and check your washer fluid. Maybe you need to top that off too. Give it a good look around while we're doing this repair. And you'll need maybe about 20 minutes, give or take, to do this. Relatively quick and easy repair. Now let's go over to the car and get started. To get started, the first thing we're going to do is remove this engine cover. This is the 3.2 liter engine. We'll set that aside. And the part that we're going to be working on is this part right back here. You notice it says F-O-M-O-C-O, FOMOCO. That tells you it's a Ford part, because during this generation of Volvo, Ford was one of the parent owners of Volvo, which makes parts for this a little bit easier to find. You might be able to find nearby. There we go. There's the FOMOCO there. And you'll notice we've got a wiring harness around the outside edge here we have to pay attention to. We've got a connector right here that we can press down on the tab. And we're going to have to release that connector right there. Tuck that aside. And over here, we've got another connector. Now this connector, we've got some options for how we want to deal with this, but there's a little clip right under here. We're just going to pop this out from the side and set it to the side. And otherwise, we're going to need a Torx screwdriver to remove the bolts that surround this, because the real issue of where this part went bad is right here. Now you can buy just a replacement piece here, or you can replace the whole assembly. I'm opting to replace the whole assembly today because it's just a little bit of a more of an idiot-proof way to do this. And I get a new gasket, and I can inspect everything else there, make sure it's all nice and clean, which I think will make for a longer lasting, better quality repair. Now I'm going to use my panel popper tool here to pop this clip out from underneath here. Working right up on the little plastic rivet as best as I can. Pop that right out just like that. There is a keyway in the front there. If we look at this carefully here, you can see there's the clip and a little keyway there that keeps it in alignment around that. So we've got those two sensors to pay attention to. And now we just have to be able to unscrew the cover. So now I've got a T30 hex socket, a little 4-inch extension, and my 3/8 ratchet. Now I'm just going to work my way around here, loosening up these bolts. There are some generations of this vehicle where you may end up with this having hex bolts as opposed to Torx screws. So your mileage may vary on what your fastener may be based on the age and generation of your vehicle. You also may want to use a screwdriver instead. Either way, it works just fine. There we go. There's our Torx screw. We'll set that aside and just work our way around the part. Now, once you've got all the screws out, double check going around a couple of times that you got all the screws out. This should just be able to pop right out. Be very careful with the wires on the side. You've got a sensor over here. Just be gentle. Slow and steady wins the race. We're going to flip this over. And the issue is going to be in a membrane right in here that in theory, you could pop this cap off and replace just the membrane, or we can replace the entire thing. You can see there's definitely some varnish in here. And we're going to take a look right quick in a second over there, over what's underneath here. Now, as we look around, you can see there's definitely some crusties in here where the oil is kind of clearly burnt up. We're going to clean that out here before we put the new cover on, the new PCV. So I'm going to take just a little bit of some brake clean and a little bit of some shop towels and clean that up, and then we'll be right back. After some scrubbing, I've got this looking like this. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but I think it looks a lot better. The crusties are gone from the varnish. I got a lot of that scrubbed up there. And as you're going around clean up, double check that all of your mating surfaces are clean. They should be shiny. There's a chance that you might have some crusties on top of that, if in case the seal blew out on one side of your PCV valve cover here. And double check on the bottom side of the part you removed, that all of your gasket remains intact, and that you don't have any pieces that remained here, because we don't want any other bits of that gasket falling down the hole, being left behind, or otherwise being left in the wrong spot. So now let's go to the workbench and take a look at the new part. All right, so now let's take a look at this part. I've had a chance to disassemble this and crack this open. So the first thing starts with being able to crack and remove this cap. And then if you pop this off, there's really no way around cracking and breaking this irreparably. And then we can see the membrane. And then there's going to be a spring. There we go. It just fell out right there. And you can see how this is all varnished over here. But I think if we look carefully, what I'm expecting to see, there we go. There's a rupture, maybe it's a little more obvious on the other side here, where it has torn. You fold this over here and then you can really see it. There we go, right there. There's the tear in that membrane. And so that was affecting the entirety of our engine's internal pressures, causing the suction through the dipstick. And so that's kind of our post-mortem on this. In theory, you can buy just a replacement membrane and spring. You'd have to buy a replacement cap as well if you were to go down that road, and make sure you don't damage the plastic here. In my opinion, just replace the entire assembly. It's much easier, and everything's all nice and clean. You get a new gasket and everything seals right back up. It's perfectly clean and ready to go. The parts that we're going to need for this is going to be one new valve cover gasket. I'm sorry, PCV cover gasket. Now this could come in a variety of forms, whether it's the entire assembly or just the part. But again, I think replacing the entire assembly is the better way to go. And so this is the version from Gates. It already comes with the gasket already included in here. We're going to need to lubricate that before we put that in. And all we have to do is basically plug and play with the part. We already have the new membrane installed here. So everything should be good to go. And now we're going to take a look at the old part side by side to double check that indeed this does match. Now with the parts side by side, we can see that we do have a correct match. This appears to be the correct mating combination. So now the next step that I've confirmed that is going to be to actually put a little bit of super lube grease that I showed you earlier on this here, just have a nice, good, tight seal. And then if there's any spots where you think you got just a little bit extra, we can kind of dab that off here with a shop towel. But my goal here is just to make sure that this gasket is nice and refreshed. Sometimes this rubber can dry out in shipping. I don't know how long this part's been sitting on the shelf from manufacturer to our installation today. So this will give these gaskets a nice revitalization to make them ready to install. And so now with that, very simple, we'll take this over to the car and we are now going to install this right on top of what we just cleaned up. Now we're back at the vehicle. Now our orientation is going to go just like this. So we've got some of these bolts here on the back that are blind and our cover over to the right. Remember, we're going to have to work around our sensors that are here and some wires. Pay careful attention to that. And then it should kind of seat down just about right. And then we'll start to be able to hand thread in a few of our bolts. So now I'm going to start threading some bolts here. I'm going to use a T30 torque screwdriver here just to help me drop a few of these in. I'm not going to final torque yet, just enough to make sure we've got alignment. There's a lot of screws on here, so I'm going to kind of skip around here a bit. Again, making sure we've got a good alignment. There's a few in the back that if you have a stubby screwdriver, you'll thank yourself. And now for final tightening, I've got my 1/4-inch torque wrench, a little extension, my T30 bit, and we're going to be going to about 80 inch-pounds, which in metric works out to being just under 90 Newton meters, give or take. We're going to kind of work this in a crisscross pattern around, just like you're doing a valve cover gasket, using our torque wrench here to bring everything nice and tight. Once you're satisfied with all the torque all the way around, double check and go all the way around a couple of times, because one of the easiest ways to make a mistake on this repair is to not tighten every single bolt correctly all the way around. There's bolts on all sides of this, so we need to make sure we tighten all of the bolts. So now the next thing we need to do is take our wiring harness. We're going to clip this one right back there, right on, and then right over here we've got this sensor. We're just going to pop this right down in, make sure we get the pins right there in the holes. That just snaps right down into place. And then we should be good to go. The last thing, if you were low on oil, but in any case, check your dipstick and you may need to add oil before you finish off this repair. And now to verify the repair, we'll go start up the car and we'll take a listen, see if we still have that whistling sound and make sure we're all good to go. With the engine on, there is no whistling sound. When I pull on the dipstick, there is no whoosh. So I think that's a success. Now that we've turned the engine on, confirmed everything is fine, the next step here is going to be to replace the engine cover. Assuming you've already checked your dipstick for oil level, we'll close up the hood and we'll be done, but you may still need to plug in a scan tool to be able to clear any codes that you still have in your engine computer to have the nice clean reset on your vehicle. So with that, any questions or comments, put it down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you've done this repair, got any other ideas on how to make this go a little faster, quicker, easier, love to hear about it. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day. Bye.